Welcome, everyone, to the Inclusion Podcast. I'm Dr. Julie Costin.
And I'm Dr. Christy Preddy-Franzak. We're so glad you're here as we explore all things inclusion.
So whether you're a school leader, an educator, a parent, or simply passionate about inclusion, this podcast is for you.
In each episode, we go beyond the usual conversations, diving into what truly makes inclusive education work.
Together, let's make a difference, one conversation at a time. Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to episode 48. And today we're going to talk about the Zigzag Equalizer. I bet you didn't expect that. And what it is.
I'm like, what? Zigzag Equalizer? Like what?
Yeah, it's exciting. But what it is it helps educators adjust the level of challenge to match a student's exact need in the moment.
Ooh, the moment.
In the moment. So when you have 32 kids in a classroom, you can constantly be thinking about each and every student that's struggling or excelling, and you can tune it down a little bit or you can tune it up a little bit, their level of challenge, to get it just right.
Ooh, just right. Okay. All right.
Okay. So when you think about just right, I don't know about you, Christy, but it makes me think of Goldilocks.
Oh, 1000%. You know I'm an early childhood person. Of course it does.
Right? And so it's like that chair was too hard. This chair is too soft. This chair is just right. One of the biggest challenges for us in education is to realize that everybody's just right is different. And everybody's just right changes all day long based on the number of stressors in their environment, etc.
No wonder we're so tired as educators.
Yeah.
Right?
And when you have this magic tool, you start to go, I understand my role is very much like a DJ, and I'm turning up certain things and turning down certain things for people as I individualize all day long.
You guys can't see Julie, but she's actually looks like a DJ. Like she's moving her hands in such a way where she's like, moving the equalizer and getting it just right. Like she's in the production booth even. Like if you're like doing something like where someone goes in to record a song, I guess, and you've got the people on the other side who have all those big consoles with all those amazing little toggles. And that's what Julie's doing. She's moving them back and forth. And you can kind of see that in this episode's download, which is at inclusiveschooling.com/download 48. On the last page of the handout, you'll see a visual of an equalizer where there's those little toggles that move left and right across, I guess it's like a line.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us what's on this equalizer, Julie. What are you equalizing out?
Okay, so what you're doing is you're equalizing out the challenge of the task for students in multiple ways at a single time. And you're moving by complexity. So as you move along the progressions, I'll just use the first top of it, and it says from single to multiple. We all know that when we're given single step directions, we can be much more successful than if we're given a word salad of multiple directions at once and we're supposed to remember them, keep them in our short-term memory, sort of remember the steps, etc. So all of us can kind of resonate with, right, humans prefer, especially when something's hard or new, they prefer single over multiple, because multiple is going to take so much more energy to learn and to stay connected to the content. So what we're saying is no matter what the task a student is expected to do, you can think to yourself, do they have a huge packet and they have to follow many, many directions? Or have we said step 1 and you've given step by step directions so it's really crystal clear?
Yeah, so you said a couple important things, Julie, that I think we'll layer, and then we'll go through more of what's on the equalizer. So first thing Julie said was that if you're looking at the handout or imagining it, on the left-hand side, there are going to be these 10 things that happen earlier or easier for a person. And then there's 10 things on the right that present more of a challenge or more of a strain. So when Julie said these humans, they're all different from one another, and they're even different within themselves from day to day. So let's go back to your Goldilocks. Like today in the story, she thought this chair was too hard, and she thought this chair was too soft, and she thought this chair was just right. Well, if she did like back squats, before she came to grandma's house or the bear's house, I guess I'm mixing up my fairy tales. But let's say she did back squats and then she comes to the bear's house. She might think all three chairs are too much. Like squatting is too hard. She just would rather stand today. And you're like, oh, for the love of God, Goldilocks, like pick a chair. And you're thinking, how can you loved it yesterday, but today you're like, you want to stand? Or she might have gone straight to the beds and said, I'll just take the beds. I had to do back squats yesterday. So we talk about stress or stressors, which we use the definition from Stuart Schenker's work at the Merit Center, which is stress is my body's effort to manage energy versus tension. So if my body's like, ooh, it hurts to squat, my body will say, don't sit. So my body's constantly trying to say, stay where it's just right, Christy. And you all, as educators, are trying to guess what I need. So, Julie, kind of help me bring those together. Like, you're my teacher, and you can't be inside my nervous system, and I may not even be aware of my nervous system, but your job on the fly is to adjust to my nervous system.
Yeah, and I think a really good way to think of it is just look at the student's current challenge. So you might see that a student is disengaged. You might you might see that something isn't right. Like you'll get a sense by
Right, like
watching.
either I'm yelling at you or
Yeah,
I'm not talking to you, right? Anything
sure.
across that.
Something's not right, and you know it as an educator, you know it. But what I love about the Zigzag Equalizer is it makes you actually make some guesses. You begin with something as opposed to this kid is being unmotivated, period, end of story. The problems with the kid, I can't do anything about it. No, 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 no. We start to look at this equalizer and go, so the ones like on the left are things like they're the things the brain loves. They're the things that take less energy and tension, like Christy said. So single, simple, small leap, concrete, global, structured, clear, familiar, preferred, and self. And I'll just take self as the last one because when we're learning something or doing something hard, a lot of times we want to do it by ourselves. So the brain prefers that left-hand side when things are, when I'm struggling, when it's taking too much energy.
And Julie, I would say, like, when you say by myself, you're so right. And I don't want people to think that we mean I want to be alone or I want to be separated. It just means I want to be, maybe it's self-centered is a way to say it. Like that I'm thinking about me and not having to worry about your needs or your wants or your wishes or cooperation. Like I get to prioritize me.
Yeah, when you think about any time you work with somebody else as a partner, you're
Yeah.
managing all sorts of things
Right.
that are also taking your energy and
Right.
attention to manage. So again, it's just your body, your brain prefers this left-hand side. And so let's imagine that the time that a kid is struggling is when you're in groups and you're in social studies and they're supposed to be creating a map together with three people and a kid is melting down and you wonder to yourself, ooh, I
Woo.
wonder if this kid might prefer to do that by themselves. And you might offer it to the classroom to say, looks like we're struggling. You also have an option to do this as an individual. So now we're going to use pig grouping, partner, individual, group. If you'd prefer, come on over to me. You can get another map and get going. Allowing students at that moment to have advocacy and choose themselves over a group because they know they're struggling.
Yeah. Perfect example, Julie, of like in the moment, you're the teacher, you recognize that students are having stressors. It's hard to manage because you're seeing their behaviors, either the withdraw or the, rigidity. And you're like, hey, on the fly, I can change up this cooperative learning activity and just say, by way of, hey, just don't forget, you can do pig grouping during this activity as well. Okay.
That's right.
So Julie read the 10 things that are on the equalizer, which you can download of course, for free at inclusiveschooling.com/download48. And what you'll find are the steps that we're verbally describing about how to move the toggles on the equalizer. You'll find a definition or a simple explanation of each of what we call 10 progressions, going from earlier or easier on your left-hand side of the equalizer to harder or later or more challenging, just meaning it's going to require more energy and tension in the human body. And there's 10 of those on the right. And we're going to toggle back and forth either for the whole class or for individuals. And Julie, I would argue we want to teach students how to do this for themselves. When you said advocacy, that's immediately what I thought of.
Yeah, and we see educators using this really beautifully, and we see them asking students to pick today what they prefer. And I'll use an example of number 6. So on the equalizer, on the left-hand side, the easy side, it's structured. Okay, you're going to do things in a structured way. And then on the right-hand side, the opposite of structured is open. Okay. And so I saw this in a African American inventors. That was the unit. They were talking about African American inventors. And at first, they had to learn about a single inventor, and they had to follow a very structured way to find the person, to learn about the person, to write 3 facts about the person, to create a timeline about the person, blah, blah, blah. And then the second round, they could follow the structured steps, or they could completely be open about what do you want to learn about your inventor? What questions do you have? How might you do a podcast for your inventor? Started to really open up the options for kids. And what I loved is some students stayed with the structured format because they liked it. And others were like, you're kidding me. Can I do a 2-part play about this inventor and me interviewing them, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yes. And what happened is we got the just right challenge for all students at once by offering a wide range of options using the Zigzag equalizer.
And I'll just build on that, Julie, one more, and then we can decide if we want to give an example with more than one of the progressions. But one that trips people up sometimes or is really similar to number 6, which Julie just said, on the left-hand side is structured, it's predictable, clear guidance. We know there's oftentimes, I would say it's almost narrow sometimes, but it's very structured, very supported. And on the right-hand side, it's sort of open-ended. You have a lot more options. Well, relatedly, number 5 on the left-hand side, which is easier or earlier in development and learning process, is a word we call global. And on the right-hand side, it's this word called specific. And sometimes when Julie and I look at it, we go, oh, it feels like it's the wrong ones in the wrong column. But what we mean by that is that global is that it is an approximation. That's my best definition of global, is any effort towards any sort of anything that looks kind of like it. Whereas specific is sort of like, here's the model, recreate my model. And so it's like, it's very specific how it should look or be done. Where global, it's kind of like, you made a good attempt.
Christy, I want to use global to specific in something we just saw in a classroom. So we were in a 2nd grade classroom, and the task was head to the door. The task was line up at the door. So we were listening and watching, and there were several students who were struggling to follow that direction. And then I realized that line up at the door meant hands to the side, bubble in the mouth, silent voices. There were all these specific information about what lineup meant. And then we saw some students really struggling. And all of a sudden, the teacher changed from let's all look the same like little soldiers doing the exact same thing and said, you know what, today, if you're just headed over to the door, good for you. And now the kids that were just headed to the door were doing it right also. And that's the difference between the brain sometimes prefers global, like I'm getting it right, even though I'm not doing all these teeny things, compared to specific, which is standing up straight, silent, bubble in the mouth, blah, 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 spoons in the pot. There were all these analogies, and I was confused.
Yeah. And I would say if you're a parent, an example that I think anyone, or if you have a partner, anytime in your life when you've asked people to clean up. There's people who clean up. Like, Julie, if you were to like clean up, I can almost imagine what it would look like versus my cleanup. So like I would be like, this item goes on this shelf. Now you might, because you might have it labeled, but normally I would be like very precise with my cleanup. My clothes are organized in terms of color and texture. So they go from left to right, light to dark, short sleeve to long sleeve, thin to heavy, versus someone might just grab all of their clothes and drop them on a shelf or on a basket in their closet. So both of those are clean up.
Christy, mine was going to be, if your closet door closes, you did a great job.
Right? Perfect. That's a good one, right? You got everything in this place, which is in the closet.
That's right.
And the door still closes.
If the door closes, you're winning. Right?
And so that would be a global response. Julie's would be a global response to clean up. Mine would be very specific. You might call it neurotic. Neither is right nor wrong, nor good nor bad. It just means our interpretation, our style, and we have to allow for that in classrooms. Because if I'm trying to make Julie clean up like me, I'm going to tax her nervous system. And conversely, if you said to me, just throw them in there, I'd be like, you're just going to throw them in there and not color code them and hang them up with the hangers going the right way? Either way, it's going to cause stressors on us. So the whole idea of the equalizer is for any student in any circumstances in real time to move from left to right as needed, and eventually for students to be able to do that on their own. So be sure to get all of this information as well as all 10 progressions on the left and the right at inclusiveschooling.com/download 48.
Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe and catch up on past episodes where we share valuable insights, straight talk, and practical steps to challenge outdated special education practices. You can find every episode with the show notes at inclusiveschooling.com/inclusion-podcast to build more inclusive schools together.